بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. So the very last class that we took was a statement of the author عليه رحمة الله, where he said, وَاعْلَمْ رَحِمَكَ اللَّهِ أَنَّهُ لَيْسَ فِي السُّنَّةِ قِيَاسٌ. He said, know and realize, may Allah have mercy upon you, that there is no analogies in the sunnah. وَلَا تُضْرَبُ لَهَا الْأَمْثَالِ, and there are no parables or examples that are given for it. وَلَا تُتَّبَعُ فِيهَا الْأَهْوَاءِ, and desires are not to be followed in the sunnah. بَلْ هُوَ التَّصْدِيقُ بِآثَارِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. Rather, it is only believing and affirming the narrations of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam بِلَا كَيْفٍ وَلَا شَرْحٍ, without saying how or giving explanation. وَلَا يُقَالْ لِمَا وَلَا كَيْفٍ, and it's not to be said what and how. So, last class, we said what was intended by a sunnah right here. No, may Allah have mercy upon you, that there's no qiyas, there's no analogies in the sunnah. What's intended by a sunnah right here? The creed. The creed. Because when it comes to the term, when you hear the term as-sunnah in general, right, then it's referring to, ahkam al-fiqh, rulings of fiqh, and so on and so forth. There is qiyas in that. But what's implied right here is the aqidah, the creed. There's no qiyas, there's no analogies. And as we mentioned the last class, and we mentioned this numerous times already, that when it comes to the creed, that is tawqifiyya. It's tawqifiyya. It's based upon text. There's no majal, there's no place for a person to use his intellect. It's only based upon what has come in the book of Allah and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa ala alihi wa sallam. With regard to the statement, rather it is only believing or affirming the narrations of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam بِلَا كَيْفٍ وَلَا شَرْحٍ وَلَا يُقَالْ لِمَا وَلَا كَيْفٍ. And this is without kayf, how, or with explanation, and it's not to be said why and how. For those who are here, what's implied by this? We just said that what's implied by a sunnah right here is the creed. So what's the purpose of saying bila kayf, without saying how or without giving explanation? And it's not to be said what and why or how. It is with regard to the names and the attributes, it is with regard to the aqidah. And we mentioned the well-known narration of the man who came to Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala, and he asked him with regard to the verse, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa, the most merciful ascended over the throne. He said, Kayf istawa? He said, how did he ascend over the throne? So Imam Malik, he said, what did he say? Al-istiwa'u ma'lum. Right? The ascension is well known. It's well known what it means in the Arabic language. Wal-kayf majhul. How it is unknown to us. When it comes to the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no one has the ability in this dunya to know how that is. And we mentioned the story of Musa alayhi salam when he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show him himself. In this dunya, a person doesn't have the ability to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the prophets of Allah, they didn't see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when they were alive in this world. So if that's the case, then how is a person going to say how? It's not possible. This is something that we don't have the ability to fathom or understand, or to even know. So when it comes to this term right here, or what's implied, bila sharh wala kayf, we leave it as it is. As the text comes, that's how we leave it. We don't expound upon it, we don't explain it. Whatever is implied in the Arabic language, that's how we leave it. But we're not like Ahlul Bid'ah, like what we mentioned last time. The deviant sects, they try to make ta'weel. They try to distort the true meanings of the attributes and the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They say that his power or his what was al-Qudra, right? They say, for example, what's implied by his hand is his Qudra, his ability or his power, and so on and so forth. This is innovated. This is an innovation of religion. To try to bring an explanation for what's implied by the names and the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that was not explained by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is falsehood. So tonight we have a very short class in terms of the actual portion that we're going to take. The author alayhi rahmatullah, he said, فَالْكَلَامُ وَالْخُصُومَةُ وَالْجِدَالُ وَالْمِرَاءُ مُحْدَثٌ. And as we go over this, I want everyone to really focus and pay attention to this, because perhaps someone might walk away with a misunderstanding. He says, so, al-kalam, speech or rhetoric, debates, argumentation, he says this is muhdath. It's something newly invented. Or you can say it's an innovation. يَخْدَحُ الشَّكَّ فِي الْقَلْبِ. It will cause doubt to enter into the heart. وَإِنْ أَصَابَ صَاحِبُهُ الْحَقَّ وَالسُّنَّةِ. Even if the person achieves the truth and the sunnah. So in the explanation, Shaykh Fawzan حفظه, he says, هذه الأمور الكلام والجدال والخصومات التي حصلت بين الفرق كلها أمور محدثة. So as it relates to rhetoric, speech, argumentation, and debates that took place between the different sects, the different deviant groups, this is something that is innovative. And Shaykh Rabi' حفظه ta'ala, in his explanation, he says, الكلام والجدال والخصومة يراد بها رد الحق أو إعلاء الباطل والضلال. So it's very important to understand what's being implied right here. He said that rhetoric, argumentation, and debates, what's implied by it is rejecting the truth. Rejecting the truth and promoting falsehood and misguidance. So once you hear, this portion that we just said, that argumentation, debates, so on and so forth, this is something that's innovative, this is what's implied. It's not mutlaqan, right? It's not, with regard to every situation that is innovation or it's something blameworthy. It's with regard to when a person is doing it in a manner to support his falsehood and he's trying to reject the truth. He says, وَالَّذِي سَبَّبَهَا هُوَ اتِّبَاعُ الْهَوَى. And the reason for these types of argumentations and debates is because of following one's desires. ومن كان هواه تابعا لما جاء به الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم فإنه لا يكون عنده شك ولا مراء ولا جدال ولا خصومة. So the person who his desire is in accordance to that which the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم came with, then he's not going to have doubts, and he's not going to have this argumentation and these debates and so on and so forth. لِأَنَّهُ مُسَلِّمٌ مُنْقَادٌ. And this is because he submits himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He submits himself to the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قال تعالى فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُم مِّنِّي هُدًى فَمَنْ تَبِعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. And this is in Surah al-Baqarah. The meaning of the verse, and if there comes to you from me guidance, if there comes to you guidance from me, so whoever follows my guidance, they will not fear and they will not grieve. And likewise he mentions another verse in Surah Taha, فَمَنِ اتَّبَعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا يَضِلُّ وَلَا يَشْقَى. And whoever follows my guidance, then he will not go astray and he will not be miserable. الْمَسْأَلَةُ مَسْأَلَةُ اتِّبَاعٍ وَانْقِيَادٍ وَتَسْلِيمٍ لِأَمْرِ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. So this issue that we're talking about, this is an issue of following or submitting oneself to the commandment of Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, min ghayri jidalin wa mukhasamat, and without having argumentation and debates. ما وقع أهل الضلال بالخصومات والجدال إلا بسبب أنهم لم يسلموا لله ولرسوله كما سلم أهل السنة والجماعة. And the reason why Ahlul Dalal, the people of innovation, the people of misguidance, why they fell into these different debates and argumentations is because they did not submit themselves to Allah and His Messenger, as Ahlus-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah submitted themselves. وَلِذَلِكَ تَجِدُونَ أَهْلَ السُّنَّةِ وَالْجَمَاعَةِ وَلِلَّهِ الْحَمْدِ مُتَّحِدِينَ لَيْسَ بَيْنَهُمْ اخْتِلَافٌ فِي أَمْرِ الْعَقِيدَةِ. And this is why you find Ahlus-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah. And everyone uses this term Ahlus-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah. And the Sufiya say there, Ahlus-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah. Perhaps even the Shia say they're Ahlus-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah. Every sect makes this claim that they're Ahlus-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah. And this is why some of the scholars have said that using this term is not enough, or saying that you're a Sunni Muslim. Nonetheless, he says this is the reason why you find Ahlus-Sunnah wal-Jama'ah, and all praises for Allah, they are united and they do not have differences when it comes to Aqeedah. People who are truly upon the Sunnah, they might have, some, issues or beefs or whatever going on. But when it comes to the Aqeedah, they're one and the same. They're not different when it comes to issues of Aqeedah. There's other issues that they perhaps might not agree on. But when it comes to the Aqeedah, it's one and the same. إِنَّمَا الْخِلَافُ عِنْدَ الْفِرَقِ الضَّالَّةِ. Right? When it comes to these type of differences and these type of differences, when it comes to the Aqeedah or the Creed, then this is with the misguided sects. قال تعالى, Allah Ta'ala said, وَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَإِنَّمَا هُمْ فِي شِقَاقٍ. And if they turn away, then they are in a state of opposition. فَسَيَكْفِيكَهُمُ اللَّهِ. And Allah will suffice you against them. وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. And He is the all-hearer, the all-knower. وَمِصْدَاقُ هَذَا فِي آيَةٍ أُخْرَى. And this is confirmed in another verse. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا السُّبُلَ فَتَفَرَّقَ بِكُمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِهِ. And do not follow other ways, they will separate you from His way. ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. And this is what He has instructed you with, so that you may attain piety. So his statements, the statement of the author alayhi rahmatullah, وَإِنْ أَصَابَ صَاحِبُهُ الْحَقَّ وَالسُّنَّةِ. Even if that person achieves the truth and the sunnah. And this goes back to what was initially being talked about, which was what? Argumentation, debates, so on and so forth. And just to be very clear, this issue, specifically when it comes to debating Ahlul Bid'ah, having debates with the people who are upon misguidance, or even non-Muslims. And this is something that you see a lot in the UK. There's a park that's there, I forget the name, but it's a well-known park. And you find a lot of brothers going out there, they be having debates with Christians or atheists, Jews, even people who are upon misguidance, so on and so forth. When it comes to this issue in particular, having these type of debates, what's the ruling? Or what's the detail, rather? First, is it permissible?
No, not according to what you're saying there.
Well, now, so first, what we explained already, the argumentation, the debates that are being referred to here is when a person is promoting falsehood and he's rejecting the truth. That's what's being intended right here by the statement of the author alayhi rahmatullah. But we're talking about a person who's upon the sunnah and he's debating with Ahlul Bid'ah. Is that permissible?
No.
He said no? Why?
Because you shouldn't debate with someone.
So it's fihi tafsil. There's detail with regard to it. So if a person doesn't, first we mentioned the verse, Allah Jalla wa Ala said, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana." And call to the way of your Lord with wisdom and a good maw'izah, yani a good admonition. وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. And argue or debate with them with that which is best. So it's permissible to debate, the people who are upon misguidance. But what's the guideline or the conditions that a person must fulfill in order to do that? Is that for any person? Is that for the common Joe?
Must have knowledge.
Person has to have knowledge. So first the person has to be grounded in knowledge. And when we say grounded in knowledge, we're not talking about somebody who read a few books. You know, even if the books are correct, you know, they read a few books on Aqidah. Because we know some brothers, we know of brothers, for example, they didn't really study anywhere. But, you know, they read some books here and there when it comes to the creed. And, you know, they might have a YouTube channel, or they might have, you know, a platform on social media, and they'll use that to, you know, refute Ahlul Bid'ah. The scholars say this, in general, when it comes to refuting Ahlul Bid'ah or debating with Ahlul Bid'ah, this is for the scholars. It's for the scholars. Or it's for a person who's grounded, when we say a talib ilm mutamakkin, a person who's a strong student of knowledge. It's not just for anybody. It's not just for anybody. Because if a person is an ignoramus, and not just being an ignoramus, because even the verse that we just mentioned, وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ, and before that, أُدْعُ إِلَى سَبِيلِ رَبِّكَ بِالْحِكْمَةِ وَالْمَوْعِظَةِ الْحَسَنَةِ, call to the way of your Lord with wisdom and a good admonition. So there's a certain usloob that a person has to have. There's a certain manner that a person must have when he's doing this. Because even if a person has knowledge, but he's not good when it comes to debates. You have some people, they have knowledge. There's no doubt that they have knowledge. They might have a master's in Aqidah, they might have a master's in Hadith, or whatever the case is, or doctors in Aqidah, and so on and so forth. But perhaps they're not good when it comes to debates. So if this person was to debate against someone else who's upon clear misguidance, but that person is very eloquent, then perhaps by doing this, you're going to cause a greater harm than good. Because you have people who are around you who are just ignoramuses, and they're listening, but because of what this person is saying and how he's saying it, he's more convincing than the person who is from Ahlus-Sunnah, but he has knowledge, but his usloob, or the manner in which he's speaking is not, it's not really convincing. So a person has to have knowledge. He has to know how to debate as well. Because as we just mentioned, it could cause greater harm than good. So this is with regard to the person who has knowledge. Person who has knowledge. And a lot of times, and this is really the bitter reality, a lot of the brothers who are doing this, they don't fit these guidelines. I've listened to some of them. Some of them, even when they speak English, you can barely make out what they say sometimes. They're not really even fluent like that in English. And sometimes they speak English. But, when you listen to them and just the manner in which they're doing it, it's like they lack these qualities that are mentioned in that verse. They don't have wisdom, and they're not debating in a manner that's best. You find some of them, they start using verbiage, or they use, vocabulary that, it's like street talk. You're talking to non-Muslims, or you're talking to someone who's upon misguidance. Your ultimate objective should be to promote that which is correct, call them to that which is correct, and refute falsehood. It's not for yourself. This is one of the serious issues about social media now. Everybody wants to have all these followers and all of these views. If that's your objective, then already you're missing a condition for the validity or the soundness of your good deed, which is ikhlas. So your objective in doing it is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You want to promote the truth, and you want to refute falsehood. So the statement of the author alayhi rahmatullah, وَإِنْ أَصَابَ صَاحِبُهُ الْحَقَّ وَالسُّنَّةِ, even if that person achieves the truth and the sunnah, أي فهو مخطئ لأنه أصابهما من غير الطريق الصحيح. He says this means that this person is in error, and he's wrong, because he did not achieve the truth and the sunnah in the correct manner. He did not do it in the correct manner. لأن الطريق الصحيح هو التسليم, because the correct manner or the correct path is to submit oneself. وعدم الخوض والجدال والمراء الذي يشحن القلوب, and it's not by way of argumentations and debates that cause rancor in the hearts. Some people, when they debate, they might be good or very fluent or whatever, eloquent, but the way in which they do it, it causes rancor and causes grudges between people. Right? In this manner, if it's done in this manner, this is not something that's praiseworthy. وَيَبْعَثُ عَلَى الْأَحْقَادِ وَيَبْعَثُ أيضا على أشد من ذلك وهو تكفير. right? It causes rancor and grudges. And likewise, it can cause something that's even worse, which is a takfir, which is to excommunicate someone from Islam. Right? That a person is debating with someone, they're both Muslims, and then it gets to the point because of how the way in which they're debating, it causes all of this rancor and this hatred, that they excommunicate one another from the religion of Islam. لأن الفرق الضالة يكفر بعضها بعضا. Because the misguided sects, they declare one another to be disbelievers. وَيُضَلِّلُ بَعْضُهَا بَعْضًا. And they declare one another to be astray. And he mentions the verse in Surah Al-Rum, كُلُّ حِزْبٍ بِمَا لَدَيْهِمْ فَرِحُونَ. And every sect or every group is happy with that which they have. كُلُّ وَاحِدٍ يَعْتَبِرُ أَنَّ مَا هُوَ عَلَيْهِ هُوَ الصَّحِيحِ. Every person considers that which he's upon is the correct, that which is correct. أما أهل السنة والجماعة الذين سلموا الأمر وانقادوا فإنهم لم يحصل بينهم خلاف ولله الحمد. So he says, as for أهل السنة والجماعة, those who submit themselves to the commandment of Allah, then they don't have these type of khilaf, these type of differences. ولله الحمد. ولا يكفر بعضهم بعضا. They do not declare one another to be disbelievers. وَلَا يُضَلِّلُ بَعْضُهُمْ بَعْضًا. And they do not declare one another to be astray. بَلْ يُثْنِي بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. Rather, they praise one another. وَيَقْتَدِي بَعْضُهُمْ بِبَعْضٍ. And they follow one another. لِأَنَّهُمْ عَلَى طَرِيقٍ صَحِيحٍ. Because they're upon the correct path. إنما تحصل الإحن والإحقاد والتكفير والتضليل بسبب مخالفة الحق. The only reason that causes all of this rancor and all of this hatred and declaring people to be disbelievers and to be astray is because of opposing the truth. وَالْأَخْذِ بِالْآرَاءِ وَالْأَفْكَارِ. And, a person sticking to their views and their opinions. لا شك أن كل واحد يريد أن ينتصر لرأيه. There's no doubt that every person wants to support his own view. وَلَا يَقْبَلُ أَن تَقُولَ لَهُ. And a person is not going to accept that you say to him, أَنْتَ مُخْطِئٌ, that you are wrong. Most people, if you were to come to them and say that you're wrong, they're not going to accept that from you. مَعْنَ هَذَا أَنَّكَ تَتَّهِمُ عَقْلَهُ بِالنَّقْصِ. And when you do this, indirectly, you're saying that your intellect, is not all the way there. Right? You have some deficiency as it relates to your intellect. وَهُوَ لَا يَرْضَى بِهَذَا. A person is not going to be pleased with this. And this, in a way, goes back to what we mentioned in terms of having hikmah. When you advise people, you have to use hikmah. We've seen this numerous years ago. Brothers who are upon the da'wah, that when they advise people, they do it in a way that's so rigid and so harsh. You run people away. Chase people away from, the truth. Yeah, especially people, that's what we're talking about. People who are upon the da'wah. And I'm talking about Ahlul Bid'ah.
We had that situation downtown here. In the masjid, the brothers, they were rough, man. Really rough. Deviant.
Yeah, alhamdulillah now is gotten some, I'd say it's much better. But like in the early 2000s, I remember, it's like, I don't know what it is. It's like people correlated Salafiyah with, I don't know, boot camp or something, like a boot camp mentality.
No, the Imam had to tell the brothers, these are the same people who coming up with the money for the cold breeze and
right.
Whatever.
Yeah, even like when it comes, for example, to the issue of, straining the rows and putting hill to hill, shoulder to shoulder. I remember I was told, it was a masjid in Atlanta years ago. It was a brother that I knew of, and he went to the masjid. It's a masjid that was upon the sunnah. But because the brother didn't put his hill to hill, and most brothers, they pray like this, right? They just have the tips of their toes, touching the other person's toe or whatever the case, and it wasn't hill to hill. The person physically grabbed his leg and put his leg by where his heel was touching his heel. And the imam at that time, he advised him. He said, "Listen, akhi, this brother's a guest. Like, where's your etiquette? Where's your manners and stuff? And stuff like this, wallahi, it will chase people away and it'll put a bad taste in their mouth, even if you're upon the truth. And this is one of the stigmas, unfortunately, that people have, and the gripe that they have with Salafiyah. They say Salafis are harsh. And yes, you have some people who are harsh, but you have people who are Muslims, just regular Muslims, and they're harsh. So don't attribute, that harshness to Salafiyah. That yes, you have people who are ignorant and they do things that are not correct, but don't make a blanket statement and say all Salafis are like that. All right, that's when you start having an issue.
Now we're going to talk about the people that's too hard. You ain't got to talk about the people that's just too soft.
Nah,
Ahsan. You say one show any type of aggression, they just get.
Ahsan. Nah, so then you have the people who are on the other spectrum, and they're way too lackadaisical. Way too lackadaisical. And then it's as though that type of, meslek, that type of way is supposed to be neutral, or that's in the middle ground. That's not correct either. You can't be too harsh, and you can't go to the other side. We were talking about this the other morning. A tafriq, ifrat wa tafriq, right? You can't go too far to the right or too far to the left. You have to be in the middle course. Na'am. So as the Shaykh, he said, every person they're trying to, they want to support their opinion, and no one's going to, not no one, but a person's not going to accept that you say to him, Anta mukhtiyun, you're wrong. Because indirectly, this is like you're saying, his intellect, he has deficiency with regard to his intellect. وَهُوَ لَا يَرْضَى بِهَذَا. He's not pleased with that. He says, لكن إذا قلت لصاحب الحق إذا أخطأ أنت أخطأت الدليل أخطأت السنة فإنه يقبل. But look at the difference though. If you tell a person who's upon the truth, a person from Ahl Sunnah, you are mistaken. You made a mistake. You were wrong with regard to the proof. You made a mistake with regard to the Sunnah. Then he's going to accept. He's going to accept. لأن قصده الحق. Because his intent is the truth. If you go to a person who's really upon the Sunnah and he makes a mistake and you advise him in a good manner, then he's going to accept it from you. He's not going to feel some type of way or take it personally, like a lot of people do, unfortunately. Even people from the Sunnah, they take things personally. You try to advise them about something that they need to be advised about, and they act like it's a personal attack upon their honor. That's not the case. If someone comes to you with sincere advice, then take it. Because your objective should be the truth. وَلَيْسَ قَصْدُهُ الْإِنْتِصَارِ لِرَأْيِهِ. His objective is not to support his view. فَإِذَا قُلْتَ يَا فُلَانِ أَنْتَ أَخْطَأْتَ السُّنَّةِ وَأَخْطَأْتَ الدَّلِيلِ فَإِنَّهُ يَقْبَلْ وَيَتَرَاجَعُ. Allah Akbar. If you tell a person that you made a mistake with regard to the Sunnah, or you are mistaken about this proof and evidence, then he's going to accept it and he's going to recant. On the flip side, how are Ahlul Bid'ah? أَمَا إِذَا قُلْتَ لِصَاحِبِ الْهَوَى. But if you say to a person of desires, أَنْتَ أَخْطَأْتَ فَإِنَّهُ يَغْضَبْ وَيَشْتَدْ. If you tell a person of innovation, a person who is upon clear misguidance, that you're mistaken or you're wrong, then he's going to get angry and he's going to be furious. He's going to be angry and he's going to be furious. وَهَذِهِ عَلَامَةُ أَهْلِ الْأَهْوَاءِ. And this is one of the signs of the people of desires and innovation. أَنَّ كُلَّ وَاحِدٍ يُرِيدُ أَنْ يَنْتَصِرَ لِهَوَاهِ. Every single one of them, they want to support their desires. أَمَّا صَاحِبُ الْحَقِّ فَهُوَ يُرِيدُ أَنْ يَنْتَصِرَ لِلْحَقِّ. As for the person who's upon the truth, then he wants to support the truth. وَهُوَ يَبْحَثُ عَنِ الْحَقِّ. And he's searching for the truth. وَالْحِكْمَةُ ضَالَةُ الْمُؤْمِنِ أَيْنَمَا وَجَدَهَا أَخَذَهَا. And wisdom is the lost property of the believer. Wherever he finds it, he takes it. And this last portion, perhaps some people, they might think of the hadith, and this is with regard to the truth. It's not with regard to wisdom, but with regard to the truth. Some people, they use this hadith to say that you can take the truth from whoever. You can go to anybody and take the truth and leave the bad. The hadith that they use is the hadith Abi Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, when he was placed over the zakat Ramadan, right, the foodstuffs for the zakat. So he was guarding it, and there was an individual who came to him, and he started stealing the food. Right, so Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu got him. He caught him, he seized him, and the individual said, "I'm poor, I have a family to take care of," and this happened like 3 times or so. And then the Prophet ﷺ, as this was going on, the Prophet ﷺ said after the initial time that he's going to come back. So on the last occasion when Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu seized him, he said, I'm going to teach you something that you can say that will protect you from the shaitan. And I'm paraphrasing it. And he mentioned that when you go to bed at night, then recite Ayatul Kursi. Right? So when Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu informed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did he say? Sadaqaka wa huwa kadhub. He said, he told you the truth, he spoke the truth, and he's kadhub. So we say a liar, but in Arabic, kadhub is mubalagha. Is kathir al-kadhib. Right? He's not just a liar, he's a, what's the word? Compulsive liar. Not just a regular liar, he's a compulsive liar. Some people, they use this hadith to say that you can go to the innovators, you can go to the kuffar, you take the truth and you leave the bad. So this is not, this istidlal, or trying to use this hadith like this is not correct. Why?
He went to verify.
Exactly. The Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, when this happened, when this incident was happening, he went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet ﷺ acknowledged and he affirmed that what he said was correct. He told you the truth about this. Yes, if you recite Ayatul Kursi, it's a protection from the shaitan. But he's a kadhub. Right? He's a compulsive liar. He's not just any type of liar. So this shows that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he wasn't going to this individual, which was a shaitan, to seek knowledge. And he didn't know. The only way that he knew is because the Prophet ﷺ clarified and he informed him of what the situation was, and he affirmed what he said was the truth in that instance. But this doesn't mean that you have a green flag or a green light to start sitting with, the Sufis or the Shia and so on and so forth. That's not the case. A person should stick to the people upon the Sunnah. And if the truth comes to you, it just happens to come to you, and it's the truth, and it's from Ahlul Bid'ah, then you take it. But you don't go and say, I'm going to take the good and leave the bad. First and foremost, if you're ignorant, how are you going to know the difference between good and bad? And you have a lot of people who are like that. They'll listen to, for example, podcasts. And a lot of Muslims, I know Muslims, they listen to Joe Rogan, for example. I don't know why Muslims listen to him. Because, first and foremost, he's a bona fide kafir. That's the first thing. And then he curses like in every other sentence. You have people who are like this. They're non-Muslims and they're literally cursing like a sailor in every other sentence. What's the other guy? What's the guy's name?
Andrew Tate.
Andrew Tate, the other guy. Huh? David Goggins.
Oh, yeah.
People, I don't know why Muslims listen to these people. Yeah, okay, you're trying to get motivational speech. You want to listen to something to motivate you. But billah alayk, you're going to listen to somebody that talks like that? F word coming out of his mouth like he has no sense. The B word, every word you can think of. You shouldn't be listening to foolishness like this. Alright, so if a statement of truth just happens to come to you, then you take it. But you don't just go to these people and I'm going to take the good and leave the bad. Perhaps you're so ignorant you don't even realize it. What you think is good is actually bad, and what's actually bad might be good. You could be so jammed up you don't know the difference between good and bad. And that's a scary situation. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for safety and well-being. Na'am. Wa subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.